What's going on, guys? This is Ryan with the RK Outpost, and in Alec Baldwin's first sit-down interview since what happened on the set of Rust, where he shot and killed a woman, Halyna Hutchins, and injured the director Joel Souza, one big headline came out of the 2-minute preview for this interview with George Stephanopoulos, and that's this. Alec Baldwin says he didn't pull the trigger in first sit-down interview since the Rust shooting. And we talked about this yesterday at some point. I made a video on this, reacted to this clip, this highly edited and extremely highly dramatized clip, this little preview of the interview that's going to come out tonight with George Stephanopoulos on ABC. We see him crying. We see George Stephanopoulos saying, I can see so clearly what you feel, the emotions you're feeling. And of course, they put out the soundbite about him not pulling the trigger. Well, a couple people are coming out and speaking about that. One of those is the assistant director for Rust, who is also the subject of this investigation, who is also facing a lot of lawsuits for what happened. And another person is the sheriff who's currently investigating this. Well, the Rust AD is saying, I didn't see Alec Baldwin do that. He didn't pull the trigger, while the sheriff is saying something completely different. Let's take a look from the New York Post. Rust assistant director agrees Baldwin didn't pull trigger, but sheriff's not convinced. The key Rust crew member accused of handing Alec Baldwin the gun before cinematographer Halyna Hutchins was shot dead backed the actor's claim that he never pulled the trigger. But the Santa Fe County Sheriff has insisted guns don't just go off. Assistant Director Dave Halls has always maintained that Baldwin's finger was never in the trigger guard when the cinematographer was killed, says his attorney, Lisa Torraco, told ABC News. Dave has told me since the very first day I met him that Alec did not pull that trigger, Torraco insisted in the interview. The entire time, Baldwin had his finger outside the trigger guard, parallel to the barrel. Halls told me since day one that he thought it was a misfire. It was a pure accident, freak, awful accident that unfortunately killed someone. And I will tell you right now what I've been saying once I heard that he was going to go out there and do this interview. After everything Alec Baldwin said, oh, I can't talk about the case. They're doing an investigation. I can't speak about anything that happened. No, we've never heard from Alec Baldwin that his finger wasn't on the trigger before, but all of a sudden he comes out with this statement. It's because he and likely the other people that are subject to these lawsuits are about to come out with the party line. The party line is going to be Alec Baldwin never had his finger on the trigger. The gun just went off. It was just a freak accident. It's unfortunate, but it was an accident to try to limit the damage and to try to make him and anyone else involved in this appear sympathetic. That is clearly what's going on right now. It's obvious to me, and it should be obvious to most everyone else. In the snippet of the tearful ABC interview, set to air in full Thursday night, so tonight, Baldwin insisted that the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull the trigger at them, never. But would you point a gun at someone? That's a different story, I guess, isn't it? That's a different story. He told ABC News' George Stephanopoulos, breaking down as he said the death of Hutchins was the worst thing that had ever happened to him. Torraco admitted it was a shocking development in the movie set tragedy, even saying she was skeptical until she saw the teaser for the Baldwin sit-down. Until Alex said that, it was just really hard to believe. She said of her own client's repeated claim. That's weird that you would say you didn't believe your own client until you saw Alec Baldwin, a person who acts for a living, who pretends to have feelings for a living, until you saw him get emotional over it. Very strange to be putting that out there. However, Santa Fe County Sheriff Adam Mendoza, who's part of the investigation, says the actor's claim doesn't add up. And if you're Alec Baldwin, this is probably the person you're more worried about convincing of your story rather than the assistant director coming out and corroborating it. Guns don't just go off, Mendoza told Fox News. So whatever needs to happen to manipulate the firearm, he did that, and it was in his hands. Experts told the outlet that it's not impossible for an older gun, such as the Colt 45 revolver used on set, to suffer a mechanical failure and go off, but it would be rare. Now, I talked about this a little bit, probably over a month ago, when all this stuff was first breaking. We were first discovering all the information that happened. I talked to a few people, some who are in the industry, some who are just much more well acquainted with guns of this style, specifically these older revolvers. I've never shot a Colt revolver like that. I've never shot an old style revolver. I've shot one revolver in my life, a .357 Magnum, but nothing like an old Colt 45. And they did say that there is potential possible for something like that to occur, but you would need the right circumstances. You would need, for instance, to maybe not actually pull the hammer back all the way and like let it go or something like that. Or potentially for some sort of real impact to kind of come against that gun. Or at the end of the day, if the gun was cocked, for there to be an absolute mechanical failure and somehow it springs back forward, right? Like, yeah, theoretically, it is possible that it happens, but it doesn't happen often. And the odds of it happening in this way while that gun was pointed, when it was in his hand, that is absolutely phenomenal odds that that could occur. In order to make it fire, you'd have to put your thumb up on the hammer, cock the hammer all the way back, and then as the hammer is completely cocked back, then you pull the trigger, and then the gun fires. Weapons armor Brian W. Carpenter told Fox News. So that's very important because that gun had to have a two-step process to fire. It had to be cocked and the trigger pulled to fire. Film and prop historian Michael Corey also insisted it would be very unusual for a gun to go off without pulling the trigger. Barring an as yet unknown mechanical failure, this weapon did not fire itself, he told the outlet. For the hammer to travel forward at all, the trigger has to be depressed unless some major mechanical failure takes place. So I don't know how well that story is gonna play, but when it does come to the assistant director Dave Halls and this story that he is telling through his lawyer, obviously, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that Alec Baldwin is coming out to publicly set a narrative. He protected his Twitter account, by the way. We'd protected on Twitter before this interview came out because this guy doesn't want to talk to anybody. He's a fucking coward. This is all PR. The mainstream media are the enemy of the people. You know damn well if Alec Baldwin had different politics, if Alec Baldwin wasn't one of the elites, they wouldn't be doing this. They wouldn't be this nice to him. They would never have done anything like this to the level that they've taken it to comfort Alec Baldwin, to help out Alec Baldwin. But that's what this is. He is establishing a narrative with this interview. And all of a sudden, the narrative has now changed, and he's coming out and claiming he never pulled the trigger. He had so many opportunities to say that or put it in statements, but he did not. Now, suddenly, when all the cards are stacked against him, when multiple lawsuits are facing him, this is what he says. And other people that have a lot to lose, like Dave Halls in this lawsuit or in this criminal investigation, are saying, they're backing him up. They're saying, oh, I agree. I never saw him pull the trigger. That's true. Interesting how all that works, isn't it? Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments below. I'll be interested to watch what happens in this interview tonight. I know for sure we're going to talk about it tomorrow. We have to talk about it tomorrow when we get the full context of this edited and dramatized interview. Let me know in the comments below. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching, everyone. And a huge shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram? Check out the description below. You'll find links to my P.O. box and my Patreon as well. And I'll talk to you guys later.